Israel never said that publicly, but secretly Israel actually wished success for both sides. The Syrian civil war was not a bad development for Israel. The fact that two sides were fighting each other and both camps deeply hated Israel, the fact that they were so busy fighting each other meant that Israel had more space to do what it needed to do. Also, gradually, Israel began involving itself in the Syrian civil war, not directly, but using the events in the Syrian civil war to push its own interests. In the beginning, it had to do with bombing convoys that smuggled weapons from Syria to Lebanon, to Hezbollah. And later on, in the last 2 years, Israeli efforts focused more than anything else on trying to prevent the Iranian effort to entrench military-wise inside Syria. So Israel did both of these things. This was quite successful for the time being, at least. Now it has to face a different reality. Syria is back in control. The Syrian forces are on the Golan Heights border. Also, the Iranians are deeply involved in what's happening in Syria. So this has changed the reality for Israel. Israel has to deal with different stuff right now. More than anything else, it's focused on blocking Iranian progress and blocking Iranian influence. And Netanyahu has said that constantly. Every time he talks to the press, he mentions not only Iran's nuclear plans, but also Iranian involvement in the region, and specifically the Iranian dominance in Syria. Hezbollah was mostly focused on the Syrian civil war. This was the order they received from their Iranian masters about 5 years ago. And since then, they deployed more or less 8,000 soldiers or fighters in Syria in order to help Assad survive the civil war. It also had heavy losses. The Israeli intelligence assumes that about 2,000 Hezbollah fighters were killed during the fighting, and that close to 8,000 of their men were wounded. So this was quite severe for a rather small organization. It's believed that they have about 30,000 fighters of regular force, and this was significant for them. Right now, most of these men returned to Lebanon. Many of them are now redeployed in southern Lebanon. They're facing Israel. We're not searching for a direct confrontation right now. The evidence for that was seen last December when Israel discovered 6 tunnels which were dug by Hezbollah underneath the Lebanese border. And Hezbollah hardly reacted. Nasrallah gave a speech about a month and a half later, but didn't say anything directly against Israel and didn't start any kind of provocation, although Israel was busy destroying those tunnels on the border. This, I think, means that both sides are deeply deterred by the opponent and are not looking for a direct confrontation. However, as we know in the Middle East, things can get very bad very quickly. If one side miscalculates and decides on an action that provokes the other, we could be facing a very different scenario.